I'm Amy Zawi with the Jerusalem Connection Red Alert Report. Is data personal? Sometimes we speak of anti-Semitic activities as a wide-ranging thing or concept that affects a group as a whole, rather than a series of events that might affect people individually. Sometimes the powers that be will dismiss what they think is an isolated display of poor judgment that can be interpreted as anti-Semitism. They may call it a misplaced power grab, but really it's a demonstration of anti-Semitism that is contributing to a whole. In the Ukraine, this past February, a high-ranking official, police officer, sent a letter to the head of the Jewish community in the city of Kolomyya, about 500 miles from Kiev. He requested, for no stated reason, the names, addresses, contact information, etc. for all the Jews in the area, including university students. The letter was sent to the head of the Jewish community in that city, who, of course, did not comply. And he said he would not comply without a court-ordered warrant, which would actually have to provide a reason. Mahalo Bank, the officer, sent the letter February 18, 2020, with the following quote: "Please provide us the information regarding the Orthodox Jewish religious community of Kolomyya, namely the organization's charter, list of members of the Jewish religious community with indication of data, mobile phones, and their places of residence." A photo of this letter was released online by Edward Dolinsky, director of the Ukrainian Jewish Committee. This police officer, his official behavior may be dismissed by many as a crazy one-time display of an overzealous bureaucrat in an power overreach, and his position, and we should not be alarmed by it or not infer any greater message or trend from it. But is it really just an isolated incident? Are the seemingly small events that transpire that demonstrate such overt anti-Semitism really that dismissible? And is it really not contributing to the overall uptick in global anti-Semitism? These one-time overreaches or failures in judgment by officials and politicians and activists can be so summarily dismissed. How about Mayor de Blasio of New York City? His tweets issued over the last few months, side by side in comparison, include chastising Jewish communities during their events and towards their people, while his tweets to the New York City Muslim community are empathetic and supportive. On April 23rd, for example, de Blasio tweets a sympathetic message to the Muslim community in the pain that they feel for not being able to worship communally, join the club, and other groups share that pain with them. A second tweet that same day made known that there were 400 distribution centers for meals around the city, and he encouraged people to come out to pick up their meals. And I quote, "To those celebrating, I know it's painful not to worship together at a mosque or be with your family and friends, but your sacrifice is playing a critical role in fighting the disease and saving lives." Unquote. And then later that same day, the second tweet: "To the Muslim New Yorkers beginning their celebrations tonight who need halal meals, we have them across our 400 grab-and-go meal sites and are bringing hundreds of thousands more to 32 sites most frequented by our Muslim communities." And then he puts a link to the resource. Replies to this tweet included one person saying, "Did you hand out special meals to Jews at Passover or Christians during Lent?" Moreover, there was not even a mention of Jews and Christians on their high holy days in his feed, at least not that I could find. And it's not to say that de Blasio's tweet to the Muslim community was wrong, but it was the lack of encouraging communication to other groups, particularly Jews and Christians, that he doesn't communicate, which to me is telling. And then on April 29th, only 6 days later, de Blasio goes after the Jewish community as a whole in response to a funeral procession that had about 300 Orthodox attendees, many of whom were wearing masks. And he singles out the Jewish community as a whole and does not mention any of the other gatherings that have had to be broken up in New York City with non-Jewish groups, including a Trader Joe's store incident and other community gatherings. Singling out the specific social distancing violators is wrong in the sense that it didn't call out the other groups doing the same thing. To simply tweet and lump all Jews together, and then rather than is targeting the whole religion rather than and the various forms that people practice therein. You can't even lump everybody together because not everybody was at that event or engaging in such events. And I'm going to read the tweet. Quote, "My message to the Jewish community and all the communities is this simple. The time for warnings have passed. I've instructed the NYPD to proceed immediately to summons or even arrest those in large groups. This is about stopping the disease and saving lives, period." There is no mention that just 6 days ago he invited everybody out to come to get food pickup, but forget that. And he doesn't even offer any sympathizing to the fact that they were mourning somebody that passed. It was a funeral. It was simply just a chastising tweet that blanketed all Jews in the entire city. De Blasio's apologizers call this signaling out of Jews as a whole instead of the particular group at hand, and also not mentioning the other groups that have violated mandates as a, quote, unfortunate missed opportunity. And they've defended him, de Blasio, as being, quote, a great friend to the Jews of New York City. Remember, New York City is home to one of the largest Jewish communities in all of America. But the problem here is the damage is done because readers saw the original tweet and read it in its original context. Apologies can be insincere, but even if they are sincere, they're dismissed by many readers who believed the original intent because they likely feel he was forced to apologize for PR reasons. The definition of anti-Semitism includes holding Jews to a different standard than you do others. So while de Blasio sends out sympathetic and empathetic tweets to one community and then alienates another, to me this is quite telling. Continued one-time evidences of anti-Semitism cannot be continually dismissed. All data is a compilation of single events. According to the American Defamation League, Jonathan Greenblatt, the organization's CEO, attributes 2019's record high of anti-Semitic attacks in America to a, quote, normalization of anti-Semitic tropes, and, quote, the charged politics of the day and social media. For 2020, he adds, the COVID-19 crisis is now fueling anti-Semitic conspiracy theories. The 2019 numbers from the ADL are in, and this is for the United States. 2019, more American Jews were targets of attacks than in the last 40 years of incidents, and these included the attacks in a California synagogue, a Jewish grocery store, and a New Jersey and a rabbi's home in New York. The 2019 count, 2,107 actual incidents, 61 assault cases that included 95 specific victims, 1,127 instances of harassment, and 919 acts of vandalism. This is the highest annual count in the history of the ADL's counting, which started in 1979. This is a 12% increase over the 1,879 incidences counted in 2018. Of the anti-Semitic assault cases that involved 95 victims, more than half of those assaults were in de Blasio's New York City, including 25 in Brooklyn alone. 8 of those Brooklyn assaults happened during a span of 8 days in December, primarily in neighborhoods where Orthodox Jews live. Now remember, Orthodox Jews often feel the brunt of anti-Semitism because violence in this sense, because they are identified easily by their attire. So tell me again how de Blasio is a great friend to the Jews. Under his watch, we see an increase in danger for those who have inhabited New York City for hundreds of years. And we see no supportive tweets, only chastisement. And this sends a message. The data is clear. Anti-Semitism is on the rise, especially in cities all around the world. And for those who in any way dismiss it or apologize it as some error in interpretation, or says that identifying these little tweets and singling out these incidences as anti-Semitism undermines any true fight against anti-Semitism as a whole, well, that form of dismissal is its own form of turning a blind eye. Mayors cannot be cavalier in their tweets. Hateful people in New York City are fueled by these tweets and their brazen attacks against the Jews and use the tweets as an excuse for their own violent behavior. Remember, data is clear. Anti-Semitism worldwide is on the rise. In New York City, on college campuses, in Europe, and elsewhere. Demonstrations of it will target a community as a whole or specific individuals. And on the institutional level, we see it target the modern state of Israel with various kinds of BDS campaigns, social media posts, policy. In the UN, we see it in various platforms there, and we see it in our own U.S. Democrat Party. Let us not dismiss or underestimate the power of a specific derogatory comment or event against the Jewish people and the sweeping untruths about the state of Israel. These are fuel for those who want to continue to hate a people or specific persons, and it is not fair, it is not just, and as Christians, we cannot tolerate it. Shavua Tov, and have a great week.